What's up, everybody? My name is Devin Terry, and this is Gut Check Fantasy Football, where we do the research so you can just go with your gut. Today is part 1 of 2 of our Outlook show, where we talk about everything that's coming up this week and how it pertains to our season-long fantasy football leagues. We will be looking at 8 games today and then the other 7 tomorrow. So, without further ado, let's get into it. First off, I just want to say welcome to the channel and or podcast, depending on how you're ingesting us right now. Be sure to do all the cool stuff that cool people do, like, subscribe, download, and turn on notifications. Look, it's a win-win situation. We get noticed, and you continue to get solid fantasy football analysis. We're going to go through these games one by one. I'm going to tell you who you should start, who you should sit. And for some of those people that are kind of out in limbo, should I sit him? Should I start him? We're calling that the Go With Your Gut section. And I'm going to give you a little bit of information to make your decisions on starting or sitting. And honestly, just go with your gut, because that's what we're all about here. We're going to go really quick here, so keep up. Thursday night, the 3-1 Los Angeles Rams travel to Seattle to face off against the 3-1 Seahawks. This game has a 49-point over and under with Seattle favored, and honestly, I believe that Seattle is going to win as well. In the stardom list, we've got Russell Wilson, Chris Carson, Tyler Lockett, Cooper Kupp, Todd Gurley. They're good. They're producing fantasy-wise. They're getting volume, all of those things. Tyler Lockett was a bit of a letdown last week, so was Russell Wilson, but look, they're in a great spot this week against the Rams defense that just got beat up. Sit him. You're going to want to sit Brandon Cooks in this one. I'm sorry, but all of us that drafted him high, me including, Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp are eating up those targets, and Brandon Cooks isn't really even getting looked at. In the Go With Your Gut section, Will Disley. He was great last week, but he could see some trouble against the Rams, honestly. They only give up 10.15 to tight ends on average per game. Jared Goff. Listen, he's got the talent around him to be great. 68 pass attempts last week, but he is playing like boo-boo. Does even worse on the road, and honestly, he's droppable because I drafted him as well, and I dropped him last night for Jacoby Brissett. Robert Woods, he's got big play potential. He just has to connect with Goff. I'm starting Robert Woods, and I've heard a little bit through different avenues that people are actually thinking about sitting him, which I think that's a mistake. But you know what we always say, go with your gut. Also, we've got a sleeper in this game. I really think Gerald Everett could go off this week. 12.9 points last week. He is a bit touchdown dependent like every other tight end, but listen, he saw 8 targets last week, and for a tight end, I'll take that all day against a Seattle defense that doesn't do very well against tight ends. On to the next one. The 0-3 Jets travel to Philadelphia to face the 2-2 Eagles. This game is a 44-point over-under with the Eagles favored. And, the Eagles are going to win. I'm sorry. Stardom column. Carson Wentz, Alshon Jeffrey, Zach Ertz. They're great. They're good going up against the Jets defense. They're going to have points. On the Jets side of the ball, you've got to start Le'Veon Bell. You drafted him early, and he's getting volume that is out of this world. And sooner or later, some of those are going to break for big runs, for touchdowns. Put them in your lineups. Don't even think about it. Moving on to the sit-em category in this game. Jameson Crowder, I know I drafted him in the later rounds, albeit, but still. I drafted him to be a deep threat, and he's not seeing volume at all. And the reason I keep on bringing up volume is because fantasy football and fantasy output is all dependent on volume first and then talent. A lot of people get those two mixed around. They think that, oh, this guy is great. It doesn't matter how much he sees the field or sees targets or anything like that. That is absolutely wrong. There are guys in the history of fantasy football that are not so great talents at all, but because they got the volume, they were able to produce. And because the coaches know what they're doing, they're able to create schemes and things to get them enough touches so that they can actually break things off for touchdowns and big runs. So I will go volume over talent almost every time. But sadly, Jameson Crowder is not getting the volume that we all thought he would. But on the other hand, Robbie Anderson, starting off our Go With Your Gut section, he is a deep threat even with Trevor Siemian. He is getting some targets, and of course they're all deeper balls, but I mean, the volume is there, but honestly against this Eagles defense, it's a little iffy, but I would put him in just to see what he can do, maybe in a low-end wide receiver 3 spot. Miles Sanders, last week was an outlier. In my opinion, what I've seen on the field, he has way more talent than Jordan Howard, and I think I said last week that he was actually going to emerge as the clear-cut RB1 on this team. The fantasy points don't show, but honestly, he's so much more talented than Jordan Howard. Jordan Howard's an old hat. Respects to him. He has won me many fantasy leagues in the past, but as we see more and more teams develop this quick cut pass catcher type back, Jordan Howard just doesn't have it. So Miles Sanders is in the definitely go with your gut. I would be starting Miles Sanders. Jordan Howard, just as we were talking about last week, he had way more opportunity than Sanders, but who knows? I don't even know what to do with Jordan Howard at this point. So go with your gut. Nelson Aguilar, with Jeffrey back, he doesn't get the targets. He's talented, sure, but again, he's not getting the targets when Jeffrey's back on the field. Even against a middle of the road Jets defense, I'm not starting Nelson Aguilar, but I know a lot of you are wanting to, so go with your gut. Next, the 2-2 Jacksonville Jaguars stay in the same state and travel to face the 2-2 Carolina Panthers. This game has a 42-point over-under with Carolina favored. And honestly, I think this one's a toss-up. I think Gardner Minshew is doing great things in the quarterback spot. I mean, he's got swagger, and I love it. I love to see it. But Kyle Allen, he's not doing as bad. He did great, first game that he was in, but after that, he's just kind of gone down. But we'll see how it goes. I personally think that Jacksonville comes out on top, but you know what? What do I know? I'm just a fantasy football analyst. Stardom category, you're starting Leonard Fournette, you're starting Christian McCaffrey. Two fantastic running backs. Leonard Fournette, he's not getting tons and tons of touchdowns, but my goodness, the amount of carries and the yardage that he's getting is insane. I am so glad that I've got him in a lot of my leagues, and boy, it's paying off. Christian McCaffrey, I don't need to say anything about this. He is phenomenal. He is going to go down as one of the greats. I could honestly see him being a Hall of Famer right now. Sit him, sit D.D. Westbrook. Sit him the rest of the season. He's droppable. I am not even looking in his direction. He's not getting the targets that we wanted him to, and he's not even getting shot downfield. And Gardner Minshew, I guess he just doesn't like it. Weird, right? Let's go with our gut on DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel, Kyle Allen, and DJ Chark. Look, DJ Moore, he's very talented. He's a great wide receiver. We saw that in years past, but with Kyle Allen under center, he's not really looking his way. He's looking more Greg Olsen, and I think the game script in this one is going way more run heavy than even in the past games, which just seems to be run heavy, honestly. Curtis Samuel is in the same boat. He's not getting targets. I don't know what else to say. DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel, kind of in the same boat there. Kyle Allen, look, he did great when he first came on the scene, but last was horrible. He was fumbling. It was not a good thing to watch. I'm not starting him. You would go with your gut. DJ Chark, Gardner Minshew likes him. He's been playing at a high-end wide receiver 3, sometimes bumping up to wide receiver 2. He's been great so far, but Carolina actually does pretty well against the quarterback and wide receiver spots, so I'm not playing DJ Chark, but you can go with your gut. On to the next. The 2-2 Minnesota Vikings travel to New York to face the 2-2 New York Football Giants. 46-point over-under with the Giants favored, and I don't know. This one I think it's actually going to be a pretty good game. Minnesota's got a pretty good defense, as they always do. New York Giants, they don't have a great defense, but they look great. They looked electric last week. Daniel Jones has been good. Evan Ingram is amazing as always. And Wayne Gallman, he lit it up last week, so maybe that'll continue. I personally think that the Giants are going to win, just as Vegas has it. Start them. Dalvin Cook, Evan Ingram, and Adam Thielen. Dalvin Cook, he's the number one running back. Don't even think about taking him out of your lineups. You would be dumb if you did. Evan Ingram, such an athlete. He's more of a wide receiver than a tight end, but he's phenomenal. He's producing all over the place. And Adam Thielen, yeah, he's not going to be putting up points like we thought he would. I personally drafted him in, second, third round, and he's not owned up to that. And we saw last week there's a bit of turmoil in the locker room between Adam Thielen and Kirk Cousins. We'll see how that shakes out the rest of the season, but I am starting Adam Thielen in my lineups because I think he will get targets even in this run-heavy Minnesota Vikings offense. You're going to want to sit Kyle Rudolph in this game. He is doing horribly fantasy-wise. He's not getting targets. He's not even catching the targets that he is being thrown. I'm staying far, far away from Kyle Rudolph. He looks like a dumpster fire right now. I'm sorry. Sterling Shepard, Stefan Diggs, Wayne Gallman, Kirk Cousins, Daniel Jones, all of them are kind of in the middle ranges here, so go with your gut on them. Sterling Shepard, he is making his way back. And his first game back, he was electric. He was crazy, going crazy, catching things left and right. He had his swagger back. Great. That's awesome. But the Vikings do pretty well against the wide receiver. It's kind of up in the air for me. If I had him, I would be benching him personally just to give him another week to kind of get sort of the feel of things with Daniel Jones back there. Stefan Diggs, he's not getting targets. I'm really bummed about this one because I really thought this was going to be the year that Stefan Diggs really amazes people, as if he didn't already do it. Wayne Gallman, like I said, he was crazy last week. If you had Wayne Gallman in your lineups, you more than likely won the week. He definitely won me some contests on FanDuel, but we'll see. I mean, like I said before, the Minnesota defense is kind of stout, and I'm excited to see what he does, but I would be personally starting him just to play the hot hand, but we'll see. Kirk Cousins, this is not a passing offense, sadly. They are running this offense through Dalvin Cook, and I think they're going to just continue that here. Playing the New York Giants, of course, does open it up to some more passing opportunity, but we'll see what the game script looks like. Daniel Jones going up against a Minnesota defense that's doing pretty well this year, as they usually do. If you want to bet your week on the rookie, go for it. I personally would not. All right, this is the one that hurts me, people. The 1-3 Atlanta Falcons. We are traveling to Houston to take on the 2-2 Texans. I don't even know what to do, guys. 49.5 over under with Houston favored. And me, as an Atlanta fan, think that the Houston Texans are going to win. Sadly, they made me do this. But one thing that we can say about this game is it has a pretty high over-under, and there are fantasy points to be had here. Starting them, Julio Jones, DeAndre Hopkins, Deshaun Watson, Matt Ryan, Devontae Freeman, Carlos Hyde, Austin Hooper. I mean, I think this is going to be a pretty good game for fantasy output. Julio Jones, he's fantastic. Don't sit him. DeAndre Hopkins, I know he's been let down at this point, but if he is going to output fantasy points, it's going to be this week against a Falcons defense that looks atrocious. Deshaun Watson, sure, he's been getting sacked. He's not been doing great as far as the actual football part goes, but he's still okay for fantasy football. Still using his legs a bit. He is staying in the pocket a little bit more than I expected, but you know what? I'm still rolling with him. Matt Ryan, yes, I know. Matty Ice has not looked up to par, but I think he can get it done this week with the weapons that he's got and going against a Texans defense. And I think we're going to be down in this one. I think that's going to force us to push down the field, and that's going to force Matt Ryan to actually make things happen. Devonta Freeman, look, he's not been doing great, but he is getting volume. He's getting fed the ball, even though he's not doing much with it. It's just a matter of time before some of those break. Carlos Hyde, he's an RB1. Go with him. Man, Austin Hooper has been shattering my expectations for fantasy football. I was not expecting him to be as good as he is right now, and if you have him, light him up. go for it. He's getting targets, he's getting volume, and he's actually getting pretty good yards after catch production too, so that's good to see. The only thing that I'm thinking about sitting here is the defenses. I think almost everybody else is playable in some aspects, depending on your lineup, depending on your team. I think this is, with 49.5 over-under, I think this is going to be a pretty high-scoring game, honestly. The only people that I would think about sitting is the defenses. I would maybe play the Texans, maybe just hoping for some mistakes from Matt Ryan, throwing an interception, getting sacked, and things like that. But still, I think that the Falcons are going to score, and I don't think that's going to be good for any defenses. In the mid-range here, we've got Ito Smith, Will Fuller, Duke Johnson, Calvin Ridley. Look, all of these guys, I can kind of group them in this same category because all of them have great athletic potential. All of them have big play potential. It's all the only thing that's holding these guys back from being complete stardoms is the fact that they are not getting volume, honestly. Calvin Ridley, Ito Smith, they're crazy, insanely talented guys. Who's to say that this game doesn't flow through Julio Jones or Devontae Freeman? We don't really know. But I personally would be sitting all of these guys along with Will Fuller and Duke Johnson. Will Fuller is, again, yet another talented guy, but he's not getting the targets like I was hoping. Duke Johnson, I think he's more talented than Carlos Hyde, and maybe it's just because he's coming back from being out. I think Carlos Hyde is getting more targets and he's getting more touches, so I'm sitting Duke Johnson. You know what we say, go with your gut. Moving right along here, 2-2, Tampa Bay Buccaneers travel to New Orleans to face off against the 3-1 Saints. This game has a 47-point over-under with New Orleans favored, and I think that New Orleans is going to win. Teddy Two Gloves looks good. The Saints defense looks amazing. You just saw what they did last week against Dak Prescott and the Cowboys. And I think this is going to be another sort of return to form game for Jameis Winston. You're going to start Mike Evans. You're going to start Chris Godwin. You're going to start Alvin Kamara. You're going to start Michael Thomas. Superstars. Evans, Godwin, Thomas, three amazing wide receivers. No matter who's their quarterback, you've got to start them. You drafted them higher, and we'll see if they produce. Alvin Kamara, need I say more? He is fantastic. He is a cheat code. Super Camario. He's doing great. And with Teddy Bridgewater, he's still producing. Sit O.J. Howard. Sit Cameron Brate. Sit Jared Cook. Sit the tight ends in this one. All three of those guys are not getting targets. They're not even being looked at. Jared Cook is a thing in the past, in my opinion. You heard what their coach said. O.J. Howard, he just needs to be better. And I don't think that happens against the stout Saints defense. Cameron Brate, he wasn't even being looked at to begin with. So, no, I'm not playing either of those guys. Go with your gut section. Jameis Winston, Teddy Bridgewater, Ronald Jones, Peyton Barber. Look, yes, I know, Jameis Winston. He was a monster last week. He was going crazy. He was getting it to everybody and anybody. Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, they tore it up because of Jameis Winston. But that was not against the Saints defense that held the Cowboys to what they held them to. No, I'm sorry. I personally am not playing Jameis Winston. I could see why you want to, because maybe Bruce Arians has cracked the code with Jameis Winston and is actually starting to play him like he knows he can play. Cool. Yeah, sure. You go with it. Go with your gut on that. I am going with my gut and sitting Jameis Winston. Teddy Bridgewater, sure, he's going to be safe. He's not going to be throwing tons of interceptions. No, that's not going to happen. I don't even think he gets sacked in this one. I think that Teddy Two Gloves is going to go out there, do what he usually does, play a safe game, throw it to open receivers, not try to force anything, and he's going to use his release valve in Alvin Kamara. He's going to be safe, yeah. But I don't think that he has big play potential. I don't think that he's going to be one of those guys that gets you over the edge in your games this week. So go with your gut. Ronald Jones and Peyton Barber, if they were one person, sure, I would want to play them. But they are sharing way too many of the targets and touches right now for me to even think about whichever one is going to start. So anytime that it's an RBBC, it's hard it's hard for me to say start this guy or sit this guy. So I'm going to sit both of them, honestly. But sure, if you want to go with how they played last week for the Tampa Bay offense, sure, you can. Me personally, I am sitting both of those guys. And for our last game for today, the 3-1 Buffalo Bills face off in Tennessee against the 2-2 Titans. The Bills don't have Josh Allen this week. He's still in the concussion protocol, and they are starting Matt Barkley at quarterback. We haven't seen what Matt Barkley can do, sure, but I don't think that they get it done with a backup quarterback in Tennessee against a really, really good defense. So, yes, start Tennessee defense. They're going to get sacks. They're going to get interceptions. It's going to be great. I've got Tennessee this week in almost every single one of my leagues because I do not believe in Matt Barkley. Sit him. I am sitting everyone else. It's a low over-under. I think these are two stout defenses. I don't think that either of these teams have strong receiving cores. I'm not even thinking about starting Devin Singletary or Frank Gore. I think that both of those guys are going to be sharing targets, and they're going up against a really good defense in Tennessee. I'm not comfortable with starting anybody else. Sorry. This is not going to be a very fun game to watch, in my opinion. But you know what? What do we always say? Go with your gut. Now that the games are out of the way, let's move on to our next section, floating down the mainstream. This is where we cover some of our favorite defenses and kickers for you to stream this week. And in our part 1 shows, we're going to focus on defenses. What does streaming mean? Streaming means that on a week-to-week basis, you pick up who is the best play at those positions. A lot of people stream quarterbacks. I, as myself, do stream defenses and stream kickers. So today is the part 1 show. We're going to go over defenses. Who is the top streaming defense this week? They might already be owned, but you know what? I'm going to say them anyways. Tennessee Titans. I just said they're going against a backup quarterback with mediocre running backs and wide receivers. They've been great so far. And make sure they are on your team and in your lineups. Just go check. They might already be owned, but you know what? Go and do it. But if they are owned, check for the Philadelphia Eagles. I could say the same thing for the Eagles defense as I did for the Titans. Philadelphia Eagles are playing the Jets. They're going up against a backup quarterback with mediocre running backs and wide receivers. And the Eagles have still been pretty good against offenses. Look what they did last week against the Green Bay Packers. Sure, there were points to be had, but Aaron Rodgers did not look like the original Aaron Rodgers. And I think that was due in part to the Philadelphia defense. Again, the top defenses to stream this week, in my opinion, are the Tennessee Titans and Philadelphia Eagles. Well, that's it for today's episode. Be sure to join us tomorrow for our outlook on the rest of the games in Week 5. And also, don't forget to join us on Friday for our weekly DFS show. Thanks again for doing all the cool stuff that cool people do. That's liking, subscribing, downloading, and turning on notifications. I am Devin Terry, and this was Gut Check Fantasy Football, where we do the research so you can just go with your gut.